And there it is. John O'Keefe signals him to come over and talk. Brian Albert waving his arm, telling John to come outside the fight, along with Higgy Bear.
Can you describe for the jurors what you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins doing in this footage?
Looks like he's giving him the Heimlich maneuver, or abdominal thrust, I guess. I don't know what he's doing.
Jameson and Ginger.
Then I saw her face.
If not, I'm going to fuck up your lawn. You're telling John O'Keefe this.
Today we're all traveling to Canton, Massachusetts to have a drink at the Waterfall. We're going to watch the video footage from that very night and see if we can pick up on anything else that can help Karen Reed. Let's watch. At 10:30, you can see the back of old Higgy Bear sweatshirt, which has that Harley Davidson logo on it.
Who are the participants in that text message exchange?
Me and John.
Get over here. If not, I'm going to fuck up your lawn. You're telling John O'Keefe this.
Yeah, I'm telling him to come over and meet us.
That's Chris Albert, and he was actually friends with John O'Keefe. He's the one who invited him to the Waterfall, and he's going to hold the key to solving this crime. It's 10:54, the band's playing, and there's old Higgy Bear drinking by himself.
Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer.
And what a change of events as John O'Keefe and the love of his life, Karen Reed, walk into the Waterfall. Look at old Higgy Bear's face. He sees Karen, then John, then back to Karen. Let's watch that again. Sees John, then Karen, then John, then Karen, then John, then Karen.
Then I saw her face.
Notice the change in Higgy Bear's body language and behavior. The love of his life, Karen Reed, just walked into that bar. He's no longer the sad sack drinking his Jameson and Ginger by himself. Now he's animated. And there's our first major clue. Higgy Bear using his fingers to indicate he wants to speak to Brian Albert alone. Had we fully understood this video in trial number 1, we certainly would have questioned Brian Albert as to what he was speaking to Higgy Bear about at that very moment. Higgy Bear's right in the middle. Karen is making her way up at the top here, and John O'Keefe's to the right. It's now 11:30 and Higgy Bear has been ignored by Karen Reed the entire time. We know in 2 minutes' time he's about to send that text, Well.
Well.
Look how close Karen is to Higgy Bear, but she's still ignoring him. Higgy Bear makes one last glance at Karen Reed and she still refuses to acknowledge him, so he goes right to the phone.
Well.
Friday, 11:32 p.m. Well.
Well. She didn't respond.
Look how close Karen is to Higgy Bear, and there's no one in between him. Now it's time to make his move. But it looks like the entire group decided to do a shot together, and old Higgy Bear can't even look at Karen. In the white shirt there is Nick the Greek. He testified at trial 1, and his beautiful wife testified at both trial 1 and trial 2.
She didn't respond. She didn't respond.
Wow, look how close Karen is, and she's still ignoring him. Having been in Higgy Bear's position multiple times, I know it doesn't feel great.
Jameson and Ginger. She didn't respond.
Beautiful job by Karen ignoring Higgy Bear and making pretend she's having more fun than she is by hugging the entire group. This leads Higgy Bear to do his own tactic by trying to get her attention by play fighting with old Brian Albert. Let's see if it works. Human apes are one of the 3 great apes, along with the chimpanzees and the bonobos. All 3 exhibit the same type of behavior when they're interested in a female ape. Higgy Bear wasn't practice fighting to later beat up John like they tried to tell us in trial number 1. He's exhibiting classic male ape behavior. What he is doing is socializing with another male ape to show Karen he's a viable mate. He's doing it to get Karen's attention. That's it.
She didn't respond.
You can translate everything Higgy Bear is doing right here is to get Karen's attention, and nothing's working.
She didn't respond.
Notice after each try to get Karen's attention, old Higgy Bear peeks over to Karen, and she's still not acknowledging him.
She didn't respond.
The most honest part on a human ape's body is the foot, and that's why you always want to see it when you're interrogating someone. Here, Higgy Bear is opening up his body to Karen Reed. The problem is she has his back to her, and she's still ignoring him.
She didn't respond. She didn't respond.
In a last move of desperation, Higgy Bear prompts Brian Albert to dry hump him from behind. Let's see if it's going to work.
Can you describe for the jurors what you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins doing in this footage?
Looks like he's giving him the Heimlich maneuver, or abdominal thrust, I guess. I don't know what he's doing.
Brian Albert's got his hands around Brian Higgins, correct?
That's what it looks like from here. I have no idea what he's doing.
Could it be described as wrestling or grappling?
I guess, yeah.
Clearly they are lovers, dry humping at a bar.
We're getting close to Higgy Bear leaving and threatening John O'Keefe. Right here, you can see John O'Keefe and Higgy Bear pretty much face to face. The problem is John O'Keefe has no idea that Higgy Bear's brain is sending out all those endorphins because he's still in love with Karen Reed.
Who or what is Nevercracker?
It's a character in a cartoon called Monster House.
This is Chris Albert, father of little Colin Albert, and in the first trial, because we missed Higgy Bear threatening John O'Keefe on video, we tried to place the blame on little Colin. However, it just wasn't fitting because Colin simply wasn't there.
Nevercracker in the movie Monster House, he was the get off my lawn guy.
In the movie, yeah.
What was your nickname and your wife Julie's nickname for John O'Keefe?
Mr. Nevercracker.
Your wife Julie actually had John O'Keefe plugged into his contacts as Nevercracker, correct?
Correct.
This whole nickname started because of a conflict that Colin Albert had with John O'Keefe. Correct?
Not correct.
And that is you on the right and your wife Julie on the left?
Little Colin had zero motive. They tried to say somehow that little Colin and John had some beef. However, it turns out Chris Albert was actually really good friends with John O'Keefe, and he is going to hold the key to solving this crime if he's truthful about what exactly happened on that fateful night.
Correct.
That is also John's house in the background there?
Correct.
Those of you that never lived in white suburbs may not realize that when you go away and ask someone to watch your lawn, it's an honor to do so. You don't choose someone that you don't like. When John O'Keefe went on vacation, he asked Chris Albert to watch his lawn, and of course, like a true suburbanite, he sent funny pictures to him, indicating that they were friends, not enemies.
And again, that's you on the right and Julie on the left, correct?
Correct.
This whole nickname started because of a conflict that Colin Albert had with John O'Keefe. Correct?
Not correct.
John O'Keefe complained to you about things that Colin was doing.
Not correct.
He would tell you that Colin used to throw beer cans or beer bottles in his bushes.
That is not correct.
John O'Keefe told you that Colin used to flip him off, correct?
Not correct.
And say F you to him.
Never.
Notice how credible Chris Albert is here. We're trying to force the narrative that little Colin had a motive to attack John. It just simply wasn't there.
Colin used to cut through his yard.
Nope, that was Dylan. So my son Dylan, who is my littlest one, he was cutting across John's lawn one day, coming home from the school, walking. This was before John had a fence that went this way. I don't even know at the time. He might have been like 9, 10. I'm not sure exactly how old he was. And John yelled something to him, "Hey kid, get off my lawn." So John was just making a joke. So Dylan got scared. He ran home and told my wife, Julie,
Julie Albert, A-L-B-E-R-T.
Julie in turn called Jen
Jennifer McCabe.
maybe and said, hey, John just yelled at Dylan. And I think Jen reached out to John and John felt terrible. John asked what kind of candy Dylan liked, and John brought Dylan a bag of candy.
Classy move by John O'Keefe, but more importantly, it squares the fact that there was no motive by little Colin to attack John.
And just said, hey, I was just kidding. It was just, so from that point on, we called him Mr. Nevercracker, and it was a joke between John. John thought it was funny.
She didn't respond.
It's now 11:57 and 29 seconds, and we know that Brian Higgins is about to leave the bar. He's also going to flip on John. Let's see if we can find out exactly when he does. And there it is, another piece of evidence we all missed in the second trial. Brian Albert waving his arm, telling John to come outside to fight, along with Higgy Bear. As Higgy Bear is exiting the bar, you can clearly see that Chris Albert is in between literally John O'Keefe and Higgy Bear. Watch John's reaction. We back the video up, and when this clock hits 2-2, that's when Higgy Bear actually exited the bar. Clearly, John sees Higgy Bear threatening him, telling him to come outside. However, he's probably confused as fuck because he doesn't realize that Higgy Bear's brain is going crazy because he's in love with Karen Reed and was just ignored by her at a bar. Because he was in a fight, flight, or freeze situation, John's body got an adrenaline rush, and his limbs, his arms, and his legs, and his feet got an extra boost of energy, and he's using it there dancing around. Here we have Chris Albert. He comes back. Let's see if there's any discussion between the two. And there it is. John O'Keefe signals him to come over and talk. Based upon the video, it doesn't appear that Karen actually knew that Higgy Bear was threatening John O'Keefe, and it doesn't appear that John actually told Karen. Had Karen known, she would have told her attorneys in trial number 1 that Higgy Bear was threatening John as he was leaving. Still at the bar is Matt McCabe. He's talking to Nick the Greek. John O'Keefe is right next to them, along with Hen McCabe and Karen Reed, and of course, Chris Albert. It appears Chris Albert wants to talk to John O'Keefe about it, but it doesn't seem like he did. There's no doubt Chris Albert saw the animosity between the two, and obviously if one of the 10 potential people that had the opportunity to kill John O'Keefe was threatening him just 30 minutes before he was attacked, he's going to be probably the only suspect. And of course, as we later find out, the only killer is
Brian Higgins.
And potentially Brian Albert. If you look at Karen right here, as she's exiting, she's signaling John O'Keefe to come with her. There was some weird conspiracy theory that Hen McCabe was trying to separate Karen and John and somehow lure him back to 34 Fairview. That's all been debunked. As Chris Albert goes to the restroom, John O'Keefe pulls the Irish exit and leaves the waterfall at 12:11 and 2 seconds. And there's Chris Albert exiting the waterfall at 12:13 and 44 seconds. He's about to walk home. And at 12:11 and 15 seconds, the outside camera at the waterfall captures John O'Keefe alive for the very last time.
What we've just seen was literally Brian Albert, Brian Higgins leaving Waterfall to go to a different location. What was the location they were heading to?
They were heading to 34 Fairview Road.
And shortly thereafter, who else followed to go over to 34 Fairview?
Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, they went to 34 Fairview. And then Mr. O'Keefe also traveled there.
Very good, Yuri. Can you believe this is the supervising detective for the Massachusetts State Troopers? It is a complete embarrassment that he doesn't know these facts completely down without having to stumble or slur his speech. He should know exactly what went down because we do.
And the defendant said John died.
Saturday, 11:54 a.m., John died.
We know that at 12:20, Higgy Bear texts John O'Keefe, prompting him to come to 34 Fairview to finish this fight.
You coming here with followed by 3 question marks.
And we know that minutes later, John was killed. Despite all that evidence proving Higgins killed John O'Keefe, this is really telling. When Karen Reed texts John died, Higgy Bear never responded. If you were an innocent man in love with this girl, doing everything you can to get her attention, and then she ignores you and she finally texts you, John is dead, wouldn't you respond? This crime was very simple to solve because it took place within a very small area over a very short period of time with a very limited amount of suspects. One or more of these 10 people has to be the killer of John O'Keefe. That's how easy this is. Once you remove the kids and the McCabes, you're down to just 3 suspects: Brian Albert, Higgy Bear, and Chloe. Since Chloe's a good dog, she didn't do it. So that leaves just 2 suspects, Brian Albert and Higgy Bear. But of the 2 Brians, only one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe. And that's our old cuddly but violent Higgy Bear. Once we had all the facts and didn't jump to conclusions, do you see how easy it was to solve this crime? And like Alan Jackson, Karen Reed, and the FBI, we are not going to stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
I never heard of any broad name Karen Reed.
The bigger the cocks, the harder it falls.